Let's stop and think, my people. In the quiet village of Idak MMA, nestled between red clay hills and whispering streams, there stood a crooked little hut, draped in vines and mystery. Children never played near it. Women walked faster when they passed it. And if a goat strayed too close, it didn't come back the same. That hut belonged to Mama Ino, a woman so old no one remembered when she wasn't. Her skin was a map of time, her voice like dry palm leaves rubbing together. But what unsettled people the most wasn't her look. It was the mirror that hung in the center of her hut. It was round, framed in a strange, dark wood that seemed to absorb sunlight, and its surface didn't reflect like a normal mirror. Instead, it shimmered, sometimes showing things that hadn't happened yet. Sometimes, it showed truths people didn't want to know. No one knew where it came from, not even Mama Ino, who once muttered that the mirror had been there before her. Then one year, during the Harmattan season, when the winds blew dust like smoke and even the spirits coughed, a girl named Iniobong came to stay with Mama Ino. Iniobong was 16, sharp-eyed and stubborn. Her mother had died of a strange sickness, and her father had taken her to Mama Ino, saying, "You are the only one who can handle this girl. She sees too much." Mama Ino simply nodded, never asking what that meant. She let Iniobong in, gave her a sleeping mat, and one warning: do not look into the mirror when I'm not around. Iniobong, of course, did not listen. 3 nights after arriving, curiosity gripped her like a fever. She lit a small lamp, crept to the mirror, and stared into it. At first, she saw only fog. Then the fog cleared, and she saw herself, but not as she was now. She was dressed in white, standing under a tree that looked half dead, surrounded by people kneeling in chains. Then the mirror flashed again. She was on fire. Flames danced across her arms, but she wasn't screaming. She was smiling. Iniobong screamed and fell back. Mama Ino was there in seconds. "You looked into it," Mama Ino said, not angry, not surprised. "The mirror doesn't show what will be. It shows what you must choose." From that night, Iniobong began hearing things, whispers in the wind, strange humming from the woods, voices that seemed to know her name even before she introduced herself. In the market, old women stared at her with pity. Young men avoided her. A few began calling her Nawata Muo, spirit child. One night, unable to sleep, Iniobong stepped outside and heard the mirror calling. Not in words, but in rhythm, like a heartbeat, calling her name. She stood before it again. This time, Mama Ino stood behind her. "You must choose soon," Mama Ino said. "That mirror has waited for you for years." "Why me?" Iniobong asked. "Because your line is cursed, and blessed. Long ago, your great-grandmother was a prophetess who betrayed the gods. She saw something she wasn't meant to see and refused to be silent." Iniobong turned. What did she see? She saw a future where our people were no longer free. Where our kings were puppets and truth was forbidden. The gods demanded silence. She refused. What happened? They burned her under the dead tree. Iniobong froze. The tree she saw in the mirror, that was the one. Each decade, Idak MMA held the Festival of Shadows, where the villagers wore masks to dance away the spirits of bad luck. That year, the masks were darker. The drumming was faster, and a new elder, Chief Ofaname, a man with smooth lies and sharp teeth, announced that a sacrifice was needed to bless the land. People clapped. They always did. Then he named the sacrifice, Iniobong. The crowd gasped. Mama Ino spat on the ground. "Lies." Chief Ofaname smiled. "The mirror has spoken," he said, pointing toward the old hut. But the mirror had said no such thing. It had said she must choose. Mama Ino turned to Iniobong. "It is time. The mirror chose you not for death, but for truth." On the night before the sacrifice, Iniobong stood before the mirror one last time. Around the hut, the villagers gathered, holding torches. They chanted Chief Ofaname's name. But inside the mirror, a fire lit. Iniobong saw 3 paths. In one, she ran. Lived in hiding. Grew old with regret. In another, she fought. Died before morning. In the last, she stood still, let them burn her. But when the flames died, she rose, and the chains around her people cracked open. She turned to Mama Ino. "Will it really happen? If your heart is clean, and your choice is firm, yes." And so, Iniobong walked out. She stood before Chief Ofaname. "You want to burn me?" she said. "Then do it." They tied her, piled the firewood, set the flame. The fire rose. She did not scream. She closed her eyes and smiled. By morning, the fire was gone. But so was Iniobong. In her place stood a tree, not dead, not alive. Its bark shimmered. Its branches pointed east. The village went silent. Then came the voice. Deep, ancient, and familiar, truth cannot be killed. And chains will break in time. Mama Ino wept, not from sadness, but from knowing the curse had ended, and a legend had begun. The mirror cracked that day. Just once, and that was all it needed. The tree that stood in Iniobong's place was nothing like the others in Idic MMA. Its bark was a deep silver brown, almost glowing at dusk. It never shed a leaf, never withered, and sometimes, only when the wind was strong, it hummed. A soft, steady hum that stirred something ancient in anyone who heard it. At first, the villagers avoided it. But then, strange things began to happen. A barren woman who sat under it bore twins after 7 years. A blind boy touched its trunk and began to dream in color. Even the earth around it grew greener, richer, as though blessed. But Chief Ofaname, he began to rot from within. His tongue turned black, his sleep was tormented. He would scream Iniobong's name in the night until the elders silenced him, permanently. The people began to whisper again, not in fear, but in awe. 2 moons after the festival, Mama Ino called the village together. Her voice, once frail, rang like a bell. She stood before the silver-barked tree, wearing white, holding the now cracked mirror. "This girl, Iniobong, was the sacrifice you didn't deserve, but needed," she said. "The fire did not take her. It awakened her. She was the rebirth of the prophetess you once killed, and she has broken the chain." Then she turned to the mirror and said, "This is no longer needed." She dropped it. It shattered. A great gust of wind tore through the village, warm and fierce, and then, peace. Mama Ino closed her eyes and smiled. She did not wake the next morning, but when they buried her beneath the silver tree, the humming changed. It sounded like a lullaby. 10 years passed. A young woman in a white wrapper walked into Idic MMA. She had hair like coiled smoke, eyes like the evening sky, and a presence that made goats bow and elders forget their words. It was Iniobong, but she wasn't entirely human anymore. She called herself a seer of the second sight. She didn't walk, she glided, she didn't speak, she resonated. With her came stories, of kings who knelt before her wisdom, of bandits who dropped their swords at her feet, of storms that calmed when she raised her hand. She walked to the silver tree, knelt, and touched it. The tree shimmered. And then, something miraculous happened. The mirror reformed, each shard rising from the earth, assembling itself in midair until it became whole again. But this time, the frame was silver, and the glass reflected only truth, not fear. Iniobong stood and spoke. "The curse is broken, but the journey has just begun. Every generation must fight for truth. This mirror belongs not to one, but to all." From then on, once a year, villagers of Idic MMA and strangers from faraway lands gathered around the tree. They came with questions, about their lives, their fears, their futures. They would gaze into the mirror. It did not tell fortunes. It showed only what they needed to see: choices, consequences, and courage. The tradition continued for decades. And though Iniobong never aged, she would vanish and return with the seasons, always carrying stories from across the world, always reminding them, power is not in the fire, but in the choice to face it. Many years later, a child was born under the tree, a girl with a mark shaped like a flame on her palm. She was called Nya, and from the day she could walk, she would wander to the mirror and hum to it as if greeting an old friend. When she turned 13, the mirror flickered for the first time in years. Nya looked into it. She saw herself, not in the village, but in a distant city, standing before a crowd of angry men. She held a scroll in one hand and a torch in the other. Behind her, Iniobong stood, smiling. And with that, a new story began. Centuries passed, civilizations rose and fell, but the mirror stayed, hidden in the heart of a forest now dense and wild, protected by those who knew its story. Only the brave, the broken, or the seekers of truth ever found it. And even now, if you listen on a windy night, you may hear the hum of a silver tree. And if you follow it, you just might find yourself staring into the mirror that shows not what you want, but what you must choose. Thank you for watching Tale by Dan Sufia. Do well to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss out. Stay tuned for the next episode.